Hi, James Proctor here, Managing Director of the Inteq Group. And the focus of today's video is not conflating mapping and understanding the current state, right, with identifying opportunities and analyzing potential future state opportunities. So when I say conflating, combining those two activities. Now, let's think about this. It's a rookie mistake, sometimes made even by people that aren't so rookies, but it really creates a problem in the world of analysis. So let's first separate those two concepts. First concept is we're trying to understand the current state. So as a business analyst, I'm engaging those subject matter experts, I'm mapping the process, identifying the work activities and the workflows and the decision points and the outcomes of those decision points and policies and procedures and these kinds of things. So I'm trying to understand the current state of the business process and trying to get to a point where I have a good solid current state map, one that's been verified and validated by the subject matter experts when they say, yeah, that captures what we're currently doing. All right, that's good, right? Now, as a separate step from that, what I want to then start doing is engaging those subject matter experts, using that current state map as a kind of a foundational tool for analysis, and start identifying and analyzing opportunities to improve the business process. But those are two separate things. So what I talk about the fatal rookie mistake is trying to do both of those at the same time, because it just doesn't turn out well. Here's what I mean, right? Here's a classic example here. So I'm a business analyst, and I'm gauging my subject matter experts, and mapping, and I find I have two activities, A and B over here, somewhere in the process map. And in my mind, as a business analyst, I'm thinking, wow, wouldn't it make more sense to do those in parallel rather than serial? In other words, instead of doing activity A and then activity B, in my mind, I think, maybe we should do activity A and B in parallel than do some downstream activities. All right, now, why is that? So what we've done is really conflated, right? We've done both process mapping and analysis with trying to identify opportunities to improve the process. Now, the rookie mistake in that is that you don't really fully understand the current state yet. And you don't understand how we got to the current state. And so, we don't have validation of the map. We don't really have the deep sort of understanding, that sort of authenticity, if you will, to start looking for opportunities to improve the process. So what really happens is once we start trying to throw out ideas for improving the process, but before we fully understand the current state of the process, there's three outcomes to that kind of thinking, and they're all bad. All right. So let me break that down a little bit. Let's talk about the three bad outcomes, right, and then talk about what we can do to not have that happen. Okay. So there's three bad outcomes, three scenarios, if you will, for the behavior if we're throwing out ideas for improving a process before we understand the process. So the first scenario, the first bad outcome, is that idea that you as a business analyst throwing out while we're trying to map a process is actually a good idea. So yeah, we're mapping a process, we throw out an idea for improving a process, it's actually a pretty good idea. So what's the problem if your idea for improving the process is actually a pretty good idea? Well, it's been my experience that somebody else, if you're at the stage of trying to map and still understand a process, but you throw out an idea for improving a process, so at this stage in your analysis, throwing out that idea, there's probably a pretty high percentage, I'd say at least 99% probability that somebody else already had that idea before you had that idea. So who is that somebody else that had that idea before you had that idea, right? Right? You guessed it, right? Probably somebody in that group of subject matter experts you're talking to, right, had that idea before you had that idea. So kind of the tape that starts playing in their mind, they're thinking this, they're not saying this, but in their mind they're saying, yeah, that's a good idea. Matter of fact, I've put forth that idea, a couple times in the last few years in different initiatives, and that idea didn't get anywhere, right? And so, that good idea that you have is really my good idea, and it's not cool that maybe you're going to get credit for this good idea that I put forth a number of times, right? So what's happening in their mind, they're going to start that's what they're thinking, but they're not saying it. But they're looking like they're engaged, and they're nodding and smiling, so that's probably a pretty good idea. But they're really irritated, right? So they're probably going to tune out for the rest of that session, and they're probably not going to be coming back to contribute to other sessions as well, right? Because you haven't gone far enough in the process to, just a best practice tip there, is I really encourage when we get to the next phase, we're trying to identify opportunities for improvement. Let's let the subject matter experts put forth those ideas first so they can get credit for it. Okay, so that's a particularly bad outcome, and that's the best of the 3 bad outcomes. All right, so let's go to the second bad outcome. The second bad outcome, and we're talking about outcome here of trying to improve a process before you understand the process. Okay, bad outcome number 2, right? So in bad outcome number 1, the concept is that the business analyst threw out an idea for improving the process while they're still trying to understand the process, but it was actually a good idea, but that had consequences. Here, in bad outcome number 2, what's really going on is the business analyst still doing the same thing, throwing out an idea for improving the process while still trying to understand the process, but the idea that that business analyst threw out to improve the process is really a dumb idea. So now the question is, who knows it's a dumb idea and who doesn't know it's a dumb idea? And again, you probably guessed it, right? Probably at least one of those SMEs, and more than likely all of the SMEs in that session know it's a dumb idea, but the BA that threw out that idea doesn't know it's a dumb idea. So now the tape that's playing, right, in the minds of those SMEs in that particular session is going, because they've lost respect for the BA at this particular point, because in their mind they're saying, yeah, that's a really dumb idea. You have, right? They think of that in their minds. It's a really dumb idea. But you don't know it's a really dumb idea because you haven't taken the time to really understand the process and the underlying procedures and the rules and why we're doing this particular thing in this particular way, right? And so if you don't have time to take time to understand our process, we don't have time to engage in this kind of analysis as well. Now, they're not saying that out loud, right? They're kind of thinking that in their minds, and they may be nodding and, with talking to the BA. But in their minds, they're irritated, and they've kind of got to tune out for the rest of that session, and they're not coming back for the rest of the sessions. Okay, so, they've lost the respect for the BA. They think the BA is just wasting their time, and they're not coming back. Okay, so that's scenario or bad outcome number 2. While trying to understand the process, you throw an idea out for improving the process, and that idea is a really dumb, really stupid idea. All right, so let's talk about number 3. Okay, bad outcome scenario number 3, right? And bad outcome number 1, across all these scenarios, right, we're throwing an idea for improving the process before we understand the process. And bad outcome number 1, the idea that BA threw out was a good idea, but that had consequences. In scenario number 2, the bad outcome scenario number 2, the idea that the BA had was really a dumb idea, a stupid idea, but that had clearly consequences as well. Now here in bad outcome scenario number 3, we got a little different dynamic at work, and so here's the concept. So I'm a BA, I throw out an idea for improving the process, and before I understand the process, and let's just say it's not a very good idea as well. And so now what we have is people that have personality types. I call them organizational snipers. And an organizational sniper is that personality type. They get tremendous pleasure out of shooting down, right, various ideas that you might have as a BA. However, they're not going to do it in that small group session. They're going to wait to a full working group session to shoot down your idea. So they're going to say something like, hey, you know what? I think you're onto something with that particular idea. Why don't you bring that idea up at the full working group meeting at the end of the week? Now, what that organizational sniper is doing, right, is really setting that BA up, that business analyst up, for failure. So now we're in the full working group meeting at the end of the week. We've got a lot of people there, and we're going over a lot of the discussions from the week and ideas and things like that. And so now the BA throws out that particular idea for improving the process. Right? Now, that organizational sniper now starts shooting holes in that particular idea, right? And so now that the BA has been set up for failure, and their reputation is tarnished a little bit because they threw out an idea that really, they should have done some deeper analysis on. It really wasn't time for that idea to emerge anyhow because we're still trying to understand the current state. Now, don't get me wrong, the other people in the meeting understand that's kind of who that particular subject matter expert is, and they have that kind of sniper mentality, and they set that particular BA up for failure. However, right, that BA walked into that failure trap, and so that kind of tarnishes the BA reputation as well. Okay, so across all three of these, the big takeaway here is separate those two concepts. We don't want to try and improve a process until we fully understand the particular process. So let's go a little deeper into that concept. Okay, real quick here, before we get to the big conclusion and best practice tips and these kinds of things, if you would just take just a second here to hit the like button, the subscribe button. If you like the content so far, leave a comment. Or if you don't like it, leave a comment. But I'd encourage you to appreciate if you'd leave a comment, because that really shows the algorithm a certain level of engagement, and that really keeps these videos coming your way faster, and these kinds of things. So just take a moment, just hit the like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Whether you liked it, that'd be great. If you don't like it, tell me why, and that's great as well. Okay, so let's move forward here. So we got just I want to go sort of best practice tip of how we kind of separate these two kinds of concepts and some ideas along that. Okay, so by now you get the three issues, and what we're really trying to do here is separating, understand the current state from improving the current state. And we have those three. There could be other outcomes as well, but I see those as three of the core outcomes I see. What happens when you start trying to improve the state before you trying to improve the process before you understand the process. So let me talk about a couple best practice tips here. All right. Now, one of the things you can do while you're trying to understand the current state, it's perfectly legitimate to ask what I call clarifying questions, which is different than throwing ideas for improving the process. So getting back to our example earlier, right, you could say something like, okay, so I just want to be clear here. We do activity B, or I just want to verify that we do, or validate that we do activity A, then we do B versus C. We don't do A and B like in parallel. All right. That's okay. That's a clarifying question. But you got to make sure and really, be clear in your mind, you're asking that in a clarifying tone, not in a tone that's begging the question that, hey, wouldn't it be better to do these in parallel versus serial? Because people, they get it. They feel that kind of begging the question kind of question, right? But if it comes in from an authentic way of clarification, that's fine, right? Now, the key thing here is we want to get a good solid state map. Now, one of the things in addition to, we're trying to map out the process, we can do a lot of scenario analysis as well. Now, what I call break-fix scenario analysis. What we do is I ask questions like, okay, what are we missing here? Are there other things that can happen? Are we missing any steps, or what happens here? These kinds of things. So we keep running scenarios against the map as well, because that kind of pulls out that deeper kind of institutional knowledge in people's brain. So ask clarifying questions. You can run scenario kinds of questions. But just hold off trying to improve the process until you really understand the process. And where you really understand it is when you've run those scenarios and you've asked the clarifying questions, and you've gotten validation from your group of subject matter experts, where they're saying, "Yep, this is pretty good. This is pretty good, solid understanding here. I think this really captures what we do." Okay, now you're in a new position, because you can you can make that transition from understanding the current state to try and analyze that current state. You can do things like pain point analysis and gap analysis and root cause analysis, and just try and start identifying opportunities to improve the process, to make it more efficient, more effective, more agile, and those kinds of things. But just separate analyzing and improving the process from trying to understand the current process. Okay, I think you get the concept now, right, of separating the two concepts, analyzing the process, or I should say, understanding the current state from analyzing and improving the business process. All right, as a follow-up to this video, I've got 3 white papers I'd like to recommend to you, which is really good to kind of take this to the next level. They're all white papers. They're on the Knowledge Hub section of our website. 10 Perilous Misconceptions of Censuring Current State Analysis. Right, so it goes a lot deeper in the concept of why it's important to understand the current state. Also, the 5 essential business analysis questions. Right, it goes into 5 types of key questions to ask when you're doing business analysis. So take a look at that. And then Inteq's BPR 360 framework. It really gives you a framework for how to move through the concept of process mapping, analysis, and improvement sequences. Okay, so those are that. Also, take a look at our business systems analysis training course and our business process modeling course. Right, we go through all these things in more detail. Okay, James Proctor signing off, and I'll see you in the next video. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.